Present here and now, and in that awareness, let us pray. Father, Mother God, we give thanks for this opportunity to be open to the awareness of your presence. As we practice this awareness, we can bring it into each and every one of our moments, realizing your presence then and there, in those conditions, those circumstances. And as we think about those that inhabit those conditions and circumstances, as we see that they are also struggling in the awareness of your presence, we hold them in consciousness. We see them lifted. We see them healed. And for this opportunity to be ministers of your word, we give thanks. And so it is. Amen. Well, welcome, non-Bronco fans. Oh no, you have a jersey on. Or those of you that don't know that there is a game on. What? What am I looking at? Oh, you do have jerseys on. They're black. Oh, okay. Are those inside out or are they? Always. Okay. So it's good to see you. Welcome. Somehow I got the message yesterday that today we rolled our clocks back. But lo and behold, that's not true. Not for another 3 weeks. So I caught myself in time before I counted on that extra hour. So. Well, we had the Drepung monks in here several weeks ago, and they were working on a sand painting. They have gone to Fort Collins and completed a sand painting there, and now they're headed to Phoenix, where they're going to be working for 5 or 6 days, and then over on to Southern California and parts beyond. So, in their presence here, one of their objectives was to focus our attention on this concept of impermanence, and the sand painting was the object of that demonstration. In that, it was sacrificed after 5 days of diligent work. Many of you saw that beautiful piece of art. And the concept of impermanence coincided with my encounter once again of chaos. Of course, I encounter chaos every day, as we all do. But as a topical series, chaos came to my attention again. And so we have been working with chaos, and we'll continue to work with chaos. I think that there are a number of things that we can learn from chaos. In fact, as I indicated last Saturday, in a discussion group that I'm in, on Facebook, the 7 life lessons of chaos was mentioned. I downloaded it and really got into it. It's an interesting work, and if you're so inclined, it is available both hard copy and ebook. 7 Life Lessons of Chaos by David Peat and John Briggs. The thing that I find interesting about this topic is that it's almost like death. We don't discuss it because we would really like to have our lives in order. We would like to have our day timer be the direction by which our lives are planned, and that at the end of each day we have all of our tasks checked off, because then we can feel like we're making progress, whatever that means. So as we look at this concept of chaos, we're really dealing with something that philosophers have dealt with since the beginning of philosophical history. That is to say, since the first discussions were written down of what the philosophers of old were thinking. And by the way, I consider the philosophers of old to not be those that existed 2,500 years ago or 4,000 years ago, but I think that there have been philosophers in our species since as long as we could communicate. That there were those within our tribe that were looked upon as being the carriers of wisdom. So the Greeks put it, though, into the dichotomy between chaos and cosmos. Cosmos being the ordered universe and chaos being the disordered universe. Interestingly, physicists today talk about the second law of thermodynamics, and they say that chaos is where we're headed, that the universe will degrade to chaos, that without any intervention, any system will move from order to disorder. And so we deal with that. We look around in our lives, and certainly I look around in my life, and I see that the second law of thermodynamics is very true, that it is degrading to chaos. There is an opportunity, though, for us to intervene, for us to bring order to the stuff around us. And part of that order is not just in the outside, but it's also in the inside. I mean, that certainly is one of the reasons why we meditate, is to allow the disorder in consciousness to kind of find its place. Sort of like spinning down a bucket of dog food. You know how you do that? You pour dog food into a bucket. Maybe you don't have dogs. Maybe you just have cats. You can still apply this to cat food. But you put the dog food into a bucket and you spin it down, and what happens is that the volume that is occupied by the dog food decreases. So you can pour in more dog food into that. And see, that's what I do. I walk around filling dog food jars so that I feel order in my experience. The idea, though, is that we can bring order to some aspects of our lives, and so we attempt to do that. And to the extent that we are successful, we will be happy, and to the extent that we're unsuccessful, we may not be happy. We may be frustrated. We may be angry. We may be rageful, and we may take it out on those around us. Well, as we look at our experience, we can see things that, oh boy, we'd like to change. There are all kinds of ways to be fearful. ISIS is on the march. As a result of the activity of ISIS, there are 150,000 people in Iraq that do not have shelter. It's not that they're displaced. There are some 2 million that are displaced. But there are 150,000, 30,000 of which are children, that do not have shelter. Now, here it is, October, and in Iraq, the rains are coming. The cold weather is coming. Soon the freezing and the snows are going to pile up. Yes, even in Iraq. And that's something that we can't prevent, the onslaught of winter. And these 150,000 people are truly exposed to death because we can't bomb back winter. We can't send in troops and keep winter from coming. And so there is a very real fear among those 150,000 that they're not going to survive this next 6 months because they don't have any place to go. Well, there's that. Then we look around and we see, West Africa is burning with Ebola. And now we have had several cases that have come into the U.S., healthcare workers, and recently a traveler came in, and their traveler died. And now we find out this morning that one of the nurses that was attending to that individual is diagnosed with Ebola. So we have the march of Ebola. But then we also have the march of the endovirus 68. Endovirus 68 is primarily striking younger children. We have some 300 cases here in Colorado, 10 of which apparently have also had partial paralysis. There are lots of things to fear out there. And you came here this morning just to get that reinforced, right? Well, so what do? We crawl into a hole. We say, oh, this is too much for me. I'm going to lock my doors. I'm going to turn off the TV. I'm going to get in my 6-month supply of food because hopefully it will all be corrected and it will all be resolved after that 6 months. Or do we step forward, step into the maw, step into the chaos, step into the fear, and resolve not necessarily the conditions out there, but resolve how we address those conditions. And that is really what our charge is. In this book, okay, all right. I know it's here. I know it's here. Somewhere. No, it's not there. Okay, can you give me a slide? In this book by John Briggs and David Peat, 7 Life Lessons of Chaos, they talk about this Polish anthropologist. They first pointed out what he termed phatic speech. Inquiries about the weather or greetings in the street creates the general atmosphere that holds society together. The Micmac Indians of eastern Canada and New England agree. They say that an individual's most important work of the day is to walk through the community and exchange gossip. Here, the content of the gossip is obviously less important than the being of the person exchanging it. That is where each person's real influence lies. So as we see all of this stuff going on around us, the way we greet our neighbors, the way we engage in small talk is important. It has an effect on our circle of experience. It has an effect on those with which we interact, and they have an effect on us. And that interchange of how we affect our neighbors and how we affect those that are close to us has a significant impact on what our life experience is like. So we have to take the question, could we turn off the microphone in the cry room, please? I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. We were hearing the cry room expressing out here, and that was why I wanted to turn off the microphone. Okay. It has no microphone in there. It's a speaker only. So we have the opportunity in our experience to affect our experience by the way we interact. Like this Polish Malinowski, yeah. Like Malinowski said it, we have the opportunity through our phatic speech to influence what our day is like, because we also influence that of the days of those around us. Well, I was fixing breakfast for Troy this morning. It's kind of a Sunday morning tradition that Troy and I have breakfast. We're the only ones awake this early. And so I was fixing breakfast for Troy, doing the eggs and got the bacon done. And I realized that I needed to get the coffee done because by the time I finish breakfast, Linda is going to be rousing, and it's nice to have a cup of coffee, therefore, with a hot piece of cinnamon bread. And so I was doing that, and I got turned back to my attention over here. I'd ground the coffee, and I'd filled the pot, and I'd turned the pot on, and I'd gotten back to my eggs, and I went over and I got the milk out, and I filled the cups with half full of milk, and I put that in the microwave, and I was warming that up, and everything was cool. And I heard Troy coming up the stairs. Everything's on time, right? He went into the bathroom, and he came back out, and he said, "Good morning, Grandpa." I said, "Good morning, Troy. How are you?" And I turned around, and I looked, and I saw that I hadn't put the pot under the brewer, and there was coffee everywhere. Coffee was under the bread box. Coffee was under the fruit stand, the cup holder. Coffee was on the floor. Luckily, it wasn't onto the carpet. It all flowed towards the kitchen side. That was obviously a genius on my part when I put in the countertop. But it was, the coffee was everywhere. Now, at that point, I had an opportunity, didn't I? I had an opportunity to affect Troy's morning. I had an opportunity to affect Linda's morning. And by the volume with which I expressed those opportunities, I had the opportunity to affect the 3 people that were downstairs still snoozing. So I had the power in that very moment to affect the day that I was going to have, and to affect the day that Troy was going to have, and to affect, you see what I'm talking about? That circle of experience that I am part of. I had the opportunity to affect that by the way I responded in that moment. Now, I would like to say that I was conscious, but realized I hadn't had my cup of coffee yet. So my first reaction was, oh! And it was about there. I said, I don't need to do this. Where's the paper towel? So after, 7 or 8 minutes of cleaning up the various places where that coffee flowed, I got my attention back to the eggs, which I happened to have set off the stove. And Troy and I sat down and we had a nice breakfast. And it's really special time for Troy and Grandpa to sit and have breakfast on Sunday morning, because Troy feels special that he has this breakfast fixed for him. But and he's the only one that gets it. Everybody else has to fend for themselves, or at least wait until someone else wakes up. And it was an opportunity for me to just enjoy his presence. That one decision was affecting how the rest of my morning went. Well, and then I had the opportunity to enjoy the fact that I had a story to tell during the talk this morning. Well, our experience is based upon the quality of our inner life. And that is certainly a reason for meditation, is because that time of meditation is an opportunity for you to set the groundwork for how you will encounter your day. Could you give me the next slide, please? Subtle influence is what each of us exerts, for good or ill, by the way we are. When we're negative or dishonest, this exerts a subtle influence on others, quite aside from any direct impact our behavior might have. Our attitude and our being forms the climate others live in, the atmosphere they breathe. We can help supply the nutrients for the soil where others grow. If we're genuinely happy, positive, thoughtful, helpful, and honest, this subtly influences those around us. We are the shepherds of our experience, and those with which we are intimately involved, we are the shepherds of their encounter with us. We're not the shepherds of their experience, but we're the shepherds of their encounter with us. And so we can make the decision of how we are going to act. Now, if I am skillful in my teaching of my grandson, my interaction with him is going to just be part of the picture. His reaction to my interaction with him is going to also be the most important aspect of his experience, right? Just like our reaction to those in our experience that may or may not have that consciousness of being concerned about how that interaction unfolds, we have the opportunity to choose how we're going to respond to the negative impact that others' experience have on us, right? So it's not just what we are putting out there, it's also what we are receiving. And we can better handle those negative influences if we are well grounded in our own consciousness, if we are well grounded in the realization that this moment and how this moment unfolds is really up to us. So, when we're willing to invest the time to meditate, when we're willing to be conscious of what we are putting out into our circle of experiences, and when we're willing to be conscious of how we are responding to what is coming in from our circle of experiences, when we are able to, from those aspects, to be in control, we are changing the chaos of our environment into the order of our experience. Does that make sense? We do have control. We do have the opportunity to shift chaos into cosmos. Let's go one more. The subtlety begins with the fact that butterfly power is, of its nature, unpredictable. We lock into society's feedback loops in so many different ways that it's as difficult to guess the long-term effects of our actions as it would be to predict next month's weather. Perhaps for this reason, many of the world's wisdom traditions teach that an action should only take into account the welfare of others in the future. It should be based on the authenticity of the moment, on being true to oneself, and exercising the values of compassion, love, and basic kindness. Rosa Parks, who recently passed, was working with I don't think it was called the NAACP at the time, but the Southern Leadership Conference perhaps, but in the organization that Martin Luther King was associated with. And this was in 1954, just when Martin Luther King was beginning to get outside the pulpit and work with other groups. She was involved in helping other people in Montgomery, Alabama, encounter the racism and the prejudice that they had in their lives. And one day she got on the bus, and the bus driver asked her to step to the back of the bus, and she said no. She said no in the face of almost certain pain, either humiliation or physical abuse. She decided in that moment that it was important for her to sit down. And when she was not willing to move, and a white man came on the bus and insisted upon her moving, she continued to sit. That one act, that one spark of defiance, erupted into a flame that burned for 381 days, with the blacks of Montgomery boycotting the transit system in Montgomery. Well, that had a significant economic impact, because the blacks were the ones primarily using the mass transit system in Montgomery. They were the ones that, if they didn't ride the bus, they would have to walk sometimes for miles to get to work, because they didn't have a car. They didn't have a means of going other than via the bus. Well, over 381 days, the blacks of Montgomery gathered round, and they supported this act of defiance that was sparked by one person. And they changed the course of history. Not just in Montgomery. As Martin Luther King had said at the time, we're not here to improve the lives of the blacks in Montgomery. We're here to improve the lives of people of Montgomery. And it was not just the blacks that were affected. It was the whites that were affected. And throughout the South, throughout the Northeast, throughout the Midwest and West, over the course of the following 40 years, there have been significant progress made in the equal treatment of every human being. I dare say that the advances that have occurred here in the last few weeks with equality of marriage were founded in the roots of that act of defiance by Rosa Parks. We don't know whether our butterfly power is going to have an effect on the rest of our society. All we can do is we can say what is appropriate here in this moment for me. What is appropriate to progress this experience of love in our circle of experience? What is appropriate for me to do here and now that will affect my life by affecting those that are immediately around me? That's all we can do. We can't predict that we're going to have this influence or that influence. All we can do is predict what influence it's going to have on our life right now. Patrick, next slide, please. Butterfly power underlines just how deeply influential ordinary individuals can be in society, but it also points to the fundamental humility necessary to exert this influence in a positive way. As with the constant random fluctuations in the heated pan of water, we can never be sure how important our own individual contribution will be. Our action may be lost in the chaos that surrounds us, or it may join with one of those many loops that sustain and replenish an open, creative community. On rare occasions, it may even be taken up and amplified until it transforms the entire community into something new. We can't know the immediate outcome. We can never know if or how or when our influence will have an effect. The best we can do is act with truth, sincerity, and sensitivity, remembering that it is never one person who brings about change, but the feedback of change within the entire system. Next slide, please. As we look at this from a scriptural standpoint, last week I talked about the chaos that underscores all of creation and how the first verse of Genesis talks about that chaos. Well, here in Genesis 4, we're looking at, now the man knew his wife Eve, and she conceived and bore Cain, saying, I have produced a man with the help of the Lord. Next she bore his brother Abel. Now Abel was a keeper of sheep, and Cain a tiller of the ground. In the course of time, Cain brought to the Lord an offering of the fruit of the ground, and Abel for his part brought of the firstlings of his flock, their fat portions. And the Lord had regard for Abel and his offering, but for Cain and his offering he had no regard. So Cain was very angry, and his countenance fell. And the Lord said to Cain, Why are you angry? And why has your countenance fallen? If you do well, will you not be accepted? And if you do not do well, sin is lurking at the door. Its desire is for you, but you must master it. Cain said to his brother Abel, Let us go out to the field, young brother. And when they were in the field, Cain rose up against his brother Abel and killed him. Next slide, please. Then the Lord saith to Cain, Where is your brother Abel? And Cain said, I do not know. Am I my brother's keeper? And the Lord said, What have you done? Listen, your brother's blood is crying out to me from the ground. And now you are cursed from the ground, which has opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. And when you till the ground, it will no longer yield to you its strength. You will be a fugitive and a wanderer of the earth. Cain said to the Lord, My punishment is greater than I can bear. Today you have driven me away from the soil, and I shall be hidden from your face. I shall be a fugitive and a wanderer on the earth, and anyone who meets me may kill me. Then the Lord said to him, Not so. Whoever kills Cain will suffer a sevenfold vengeance. And the Lord put a mark on Cain so that no one who came upon him would kill him. Then Cain went away from the presence of the Lord and settled in the land of Nod, east of Eden. Well, what in the world does this have to do with the price of eggs in China, or the topic that we're talking about this morning? From a literal perspective, I don't know, you might be able to draw something from it. I wasn't able to. But from a metaphysical perspective, this story of Cain and Abel is very important for us to understand, because Cain represents physicality. It represents that activity that is out there. And remember that when we're talking about metaphysical interpretation, we're talking about aspects of our own consciousness. We're not talking about something that someone else is doing or something else that someone else is saying. We're talking about our own consciousness. It is the Cain within us that is focused on the outer. It is the Cain within us that is focused on the physicality. Then Abel. Abel is having to do with the mental realm. Abel is about how we handle and manage our consciousness. It is in the mental realm that we make the choices of how we encounter a circumstance. It is in the mental realm that we formulate our response. It is in the mental realm that we plan our execution of that response. It is in the mental realm that we have the opportunity to make the changes that are going to affect our lives and the lives of those around us. We can express that in the physical, and we can try to control that in the physical through the Cain side, but it's the Abel side that is really the controller of our experience. Does that make sense? It is in the Abel aspect of our own consciousness that we are able to say, this is appropriate and this is not appropriate. Okay, so as this story unfolds, it is seen that God has preference for the mental realm. That is to say that our divinity, the divinity that is within us, recognizes that it is the mental aspect of our consciousness, not the physical aspect of our consciousness, that controls our experience. So, whether we are wildly affluent or we are destitute in poverty, we still have, you see, that's all Cainish, right? That's all Cain aspects of consciousness. Our mental response, our mental aspect, our Abel aspect of consciousness is what is going to control our experience. Whether we are abundant or we are impoverished, it is our mental experience, our mental control that will enhance our experience or not. When we look at this, we see that when we allow our Cain aspect of our consciousness to dominate our consciousness, what happens is we are banished. We are sent into the land of Nod. The land of Nod represents staggering fear. It represents that aspect of our experience where we are constantly looking over our shoulder. Now think about this. If we have a great deal of abundance, what is our greatest concern? Our greatest concern is ensuring that that great abundance is maintained, right? And so we are out trying to manipulate conditions where our return on investment is going to be maximized, where we're not going to be cheated by someone who wants to borrow money from us, where we're going to be engaging a lawyer to ensure that the contracts that we engage with others out there are solid and foolproof without any holes that someone could cheat through. So our Cain consciousness is going to be causing us fear. Fear in all aspects. Our Abel consciousness is going to allow us to make the decisions on how we will encounter those conditions out there. So we are looking through this story of Genesis 4. We're looking at the foundation of our instructions for better handling our lives. Allow the conditions out there to be as they are, but be conscious in how we respond to them. Be aware. Give me the next slide, please. Through chaos, one individual or a small group of individuals can deeply and subtly influence the entire world. That's from Pete and Briggs. But we know Margaret Mead has offered this. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. You have the power. It may be the wing beat of a butterfly, but you have the power to affect your experience, and that effect may, in fact, be multiplied by others. Remember that image of the vibration that goes out in the web of experience where we pluck that web and we send out a vibration that is positive, that is empowering, that is authentic. Everyone in our web has been affected by that, whether obviously or subtly. Everyone has been affected. And we have the choice as to how we express. Choose wisely. We'll have our meditation. As we breathing in and breathing out, allowing our attention to be on our breath. As we settle into this space of intentional peace, we don't ignore the conditions of the world. We acknowledge them. But we also recognize that our power in our experience is our choice. Our choosing how we respond is a power that we can express in each moment. Choosing love, peace, joy. These are up to us individually. How are we being in the moment? When we greet someone, is it with a smiling countenance or a scowl? When we encounter a difficulty, is it with frustration or with love? When we look upon an unexpected occurrence, do we get attached to fixing it? Or do we allow ourselves to resolve it in our own consciousness? What is our choice? What do we choose? Are we willing to exercise our power? To step back from the maw of the experience and realize that it is up to us. We have the responsibility to allow our experience and the interactions with those with whom we are encountering to be positive, loving, joyful, empowering. That's our choice. That's our power. And as we come back into this time and space, let us come back with this realization fresh upon our minds and sharing the words of the Lord's Prayer.